Hello and welcome to the Hospitality Solutions podcast from Hospitality Staffing Solutions, a KBS company. I'm James Krause. Join me as we explore the trends and strategies hospitality leaders like you are using to grow and thrive in this ever-changing industry. Hi, and welcome to the Hospitality Solutions podcast. I'm James Krause for HSS, and joining me as always is Carla Doherty, who is the Senior Vice President of the Strategic Account Management Program. Carla, welcome.
Thanks, James. Hello again, everyone.
And welcome again to your Teddy Roosevelt poster in the background, Carla. We'll have to do a whole episode just on the Teddy Roosevelt poster because I think there's a good story behind that, right?
Absolutely. All about leadership. And these are good times to show it.
So, Carla, today we're going to just talk through really how the hospitality industry is looking ahead at some of the longer term trends that are evolving from the pandemic. As we all know, the pandemic had a huge impact on the hospitality industry, but through this kind of uneven recovery, there's been some long-term trends that have emerged that we can see that are going to continue to evolve. One of the things that I wanted to use to kick off this conversation is a recent article in Hotel Management International on Aimbridge Hospitality. And it really outlines how Aimbridge Hospitality is addressing one of the larger challenges in the industry today, and that's labor. And Carla, you were actually quoted in the article for your work leading the team working with Aimbridge at HSS. So tell us a little bit about how Aimbridge is addressing the labor challenge, looking ahead now and in the long term.
Sure. I think, the biggest shift has been in the relationship that we had prior to the pandemic. In full transparency, we were one of their staffing vendors to supplement their needs. And then after everything changed with the pandemic and the shortages, we shifted more into a strategic partnership where we were listening more to their needs by adding some additional services and also improving some of the efficiencies, like Ed mentions in the article, how we were able to put a portal in place for all of their properties. So when they had immediate needs, we could get them at once and distribute them directly into our strategic account managers for each region and the local team that could start working immediately in their needs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I remember that time period, there really was a relationship kind of shift with not just Aimbridge, but a lot of the management companies where they were really looking for more of a partnership approach. And this was early on in the pandemic when occupancy rates were very, very low, but everyone could see coming out of the pandemic that things were just going to be different and things were going to change moving ahead.
Absolutely. And like you said, at one point, we were talking more about seasonal needs and everything shifted more like 911 mode. We really need the staff to be able to address the needs of our clients, in this case for the hotels, their guests.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Aimbridge has they've implemented some protocols and some programs that really address some of the anticipated changing needs of guests coming back to the hotel. Can you talk a little bit about some of those programs?
Yes, they have their Aim Clean program that they have already across, I believe, more than 240 properties. So having the staff that will be training to those protocols has been definitely very crucial for them. And we are very glad to be part of the solution and be able to assist them and provide them with the staff when they needed them so they could be back online with those protocols.
And Ed Burke, who's a VP of Rooms and Engineering Operations at Aimbridge, he's quoted in the article as saying, "There's always been a high expectation for cleanliness and hospitality. Moving forward, these expectations are going to be even higher." I think that's interesting when we're looking at an industry that is really dealing with this labor shortage, and then also a very sort of real financial challenging time coming out of the pandemic. That focus on quality is still going to be there. Are you finding that's still that sentiment is still there with many of our hospitality partners?
Absolutely. Cleanliness is the new luxury, you could say, and obviously it's all about perception. Recently, in another article in the industry, they were talking about how with the pandemic something shifted at the beginning, where they thought that just offering to the guests, for instance, the services on stayovers was one of the measurements to keep save their employees, and as well will represent savings up to 14% for the hotels. But that opened the questions for additional things that get involved with the operations, from the services that the experience that the guest is having by having this service on request, and also the impact that this could have on the overall maintenance of the hotel and the asset itself, because it's cleanliness and now that frequency, it does impact definitely how the overall maintenance of the hotel will be.
Yeah, I think the article you're referring to is in Lodging Magazine, called the Future of Housekeeping. And it really is interesting because it addresses this point about hotels and are using those stayover cleans as a point of savings, but it really gets more complex when you dig a little bit deeper. So they're having to train housekeepers more because there's so many new people coming back into the industry, and also there's really this issue with management having to chip in to clean rooms on busy days. There's a quote in here from Jordan Bell, who's a consultant for the industry. He says, we're hearing of a significant cross-utilization due to labor shortages over the past year, where salaried managers and employees from other areas of the hotel are pitching in to clean rooms on busy days. That's not really a great long-term strategy, do you think?
No, not really. I guess the hospitality industry is doing the best, with the information that they have at the time, and again to make it feasible because of the shortages. But in the long term, I don't think that would be sustainable. And also, I believe that as some of the shortages little by little start coming back online, we will have to go back to that standard of providing this cleaning on a more regular basis, especially because right now we have an increase on the sector of travelers that are more on the leisure side. So the expectation when you're on vacations is you really want everything to go back to normal quicker than your corporate traveler. But it's something that definitely we will have to see how this is going to pan out in the next few 6 months to a year.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because they did point out in the article that that difference with the business versus the leisure travel, and the business travel is just something that's been slower to recover, and so it remains to be seen whether or not those travelers are going to be more tolerant of having those stayover cleans. I personally like the stayover cleans. I don't know about you, but I had a recent stay at a hotel where I was there for 4 days, and I was really missing it by about the second day.
Yes, and I mean, think about it, especially when you're traveling with a family, and if you have kids in the room, then things and trash, it's actually double that when you are in a business trip where you sleep only on one side of the bed. Pretty much, you don't use all of the areas in the room, or you're just working in your desk. So definitely there's a shift on the perception and in the utilization of the amenities that you have in the room versus when you're coming and traveling on vacation and you have your family with you.
And just relating back to what Ed was quoted in the article as saying that cleanliness and hospitality has always been central and always will be. One of the areas that I wanted to address today was something called asset preservation, and we have a blog article posted on this, and it's really related to a topic that came from our parent company, KBS. Where they look at facilities and from a holistic standpoint, and really look at some of the things like floors and windows, carpets, even air conditioning vents. And the cleaning of those are really a long-term investment and a relatively cheap return on that investment. And our take on this is that a lot of hotels might be looking for this kind of service when they're coming back into operations. Over the last year, some of these cleaning protocols may have been waylaid. Parts of hotels may have been shut down. Hotels overall may have been shut down. And services like cleaning floors, deep cleaning carpets, cleaning windows, high cleaning of air conditioning vents, that can add to that overall perception of cleanliness with the public.
Absolutely. And the frequency of those services, right? As you know, when, especially this is mostly for big hotels, full properties, that they do require, in some cases, specialized cleaning for their kitchens and their restaurants and public areas. And like you mentioned, floor care and carpet. And as these hotels have not been open for a long time, or they have been just in a lower occupancy of up 30-40%, so it wouldn't really make sense to continue to have the same frequency and the maintenance of all these areas. So having that flexibility in terms of reducing the frequency but still investing to take care of the property, and it is going to be crucial. And we have helped some of our clients actually that have restored some of their services, or they started opening, if they have 3 or 4 outlets in the hotel, opening with 2 restaurants. So the deep cleanings of those public areas, those kitchens, we definitely have seen how the asset itself have deteriorated, if you will, or how it has not been necessarily taken care of. And that's for obvious reasons, because it was closed for a long time. So that is a very important decision for general managers of big hotels to ensure that they can preserve and continue to keep those areas in good shape.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're actually going to do a whole episode on this, but one of the things that HSS has done in the past is renovation cleaning or post-construction cleaning, where our housekeeping teams are basically going in and getting a room or an area guest ready. And that's a really special skill. We actually saw that during the COVID crisis as well, where after a room was cleaned, or a set of rooms were cleaned with special teams that were equipped to deal with COVID, our housekeeping teams went in and then restored that room and got them guest ready. And that's kind of a whole other level of cleaning.
Absolutely. Well, at this point, as things are changing, I think the important part will be to be very flexible and just understand what would be the need specifically for the particular hotel. It might be post-construction, it might be just the deep cleaning, it might be public areas, it would be kitchen. And we pretty much can help in most of those areas.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I just want to quickly mention here is that HSS has always provided third shift janitorial support. But it's been a fairly small part of the business. We've seen an increased interest in that, partially because we are able to offer it more as part of KBS, which services something like 70,000 customer locations nationally. We're able to offer janitorial service on a national scale like we've never been able to before. We're also part of the Avendra network. We're an approved Avendra supplier. But what do you think is driving that interest in third shift janitorial?
Well, I think it's, first and foremost, a lot of hotels that did have this service prior to the pandemic in-house may be now short-staffed. And as they're coming back online, they are considering the savings. So if they are part of a vendor with a GPO, this is definitely a way for them to do this savings. So that has been one of the reasons of why we're seeing an increase on the request to do so. And the second piece is also the fact that they mainly just to adjust their scope of work of what they had prior to the pandemic to make it more cost efficient as well. It's still taking care of the property.
Yeah. Yeah, all good points, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this recovery evolves. It seems to be like a new dynamic every day, but the good news is that there is a recovery. Room rates are up. Leisure travel is returning. There's some expectation that business travel is going to have a slower recovery into next year. Hey, I wanted to just you mentioned something in a conversation we had earlier about banquets, and I think this is an interesting kind of trend. You've seen some increased interest for banquet servers. Are people looking ahead toward Christmas parties this year?
Well, that's hard to tell depending on which side of the country you are, but it is indeed, like you said, something that has been increasing. We do see in all of the major online job websites how the positions for dishwashers, for cooks and servers are being needed the most. And as some of the states are opening more with some concerts, we have even seen how some companies are getting staff just to support some of these venues from other cities because of the shortage. But indeed, I think everybody is just trying to make a true effort to bring some sort of back to normal with these activities. We've heard for some of our customers that weddings this summer was very big because obviously during the pandemic a lot of people couldn't really get married, so uh, that was one of the big ones that was happening. And it might be that we're still having some fall weddings, and who knows, maybe some small gatherings and parties just to celebrate over the holidays.
Great. Well, Carla, always great to talk with you. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll look forward to speaking to you next time.
Until next time, see you there.
Great, thanks. This has been the Hospitality Solutions Podcast. I'm James Krause for Hospitality Staffing Solutions. Thanks for listening.